Welcome to the From Burnout to Recovery show with your host, Dr. Kate. This is where your journey to burnout recovery starts. Are you feeling overwhelmed or like work has become unmanageable? Join me and my guests for open and honest conversations about burnout recovery from the comfort of the front porch. I am here to help you build your resilience and prepare you for burnout in a whole new way through a variety of perspectives. Move past the idea that burnout can only be addressed by avoidance and work to integrate recovery into your daily life. Relax, take a breath. The From Burnout to Recovery show starts now. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the From Burnout to Recovery show with Dr. Kate on Transformation Talk Radio and member of the Cornelius Stephanie Media Group. I am your host, Dr. Kate, and I'm excited to welcome you to the show and the front porch today. Remember, as you are enjoying the show, to hit the subscribe button, leave me a review. Go ahead and download the KS Media Group app in your app store for all the world's best influencers in one place. I'm really excited for our guest to be joining us today, Elizabeth Collins. And she is the owner and director of East West Company, an integrative wellness practice specializing in burnout recovery coaching, functional medicine, acupuncture, and more. She uses her combined backgrounds in both Eastern and biomedicines, as well as her training in hypnosis, to approach healing from a perspective that seeks to fully integrate the mind, body, and spirit. After experiencing and recovering from burnout, she made it her mission to help others identify their values, explore their boundaries, and bring a sense of balance to both their body and brain. When she's not working with clients, she is consuming all forms of music, reading, sharpening her tarot card skills, and crafting custom cocktails from random ingredients in her pantry. Elizabeth, welcome to the show. And I am, very curious about the concocting of cocktails out of random ingredients in your pantry. So hopefully we get to talk a little bit more about that.
Absolutely.
But to get us started, tell us a little bit more about yourself and your experience with burnout and how you started on your own journey to burnout recovery.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the thing that's really fascinating about burnout as a subject and a topic is it is such a personal, intimate experience. You know, there are such a wide variety of places that people start out, and we all kind of end up with sort of the similar place of like, you know, when you talk to somebody about burnout, it's like, oh, I have that symptom, or that totally resonates with me. So for me, I was a kid of what we call big T trauma. So my biological mom passed away when I was 13 months old. And for me, that really kind of interrupted the way that I connect with people. And so as I grew up, that started looking like perfectionism. I felt like I needed to, you know, be perfect or do things a certain way in order to get affection and love, which was not communicated to me by my parents, my dad and my stepmom. You know, they were never like, you have to get A's or we don't love you. You know, they were perfectly fine if I got B's, C's, whatever. But I internalized, you know, when you get A's, this is the response. So I equated behavior with love. I didn't understand that I was worthy of love inherently simply because I am a person, and we all are. So from a very early age, things like perfectionism, not enoughness, self-worth were really, really tied up and heavily impacted how I developed as an individual. I was incredibly hard on myself. I had incredibly high standards. If I didn't do it just a certain way, I wasn't happy, and I really struggled with that. And the better I did in most things, the more those patterns kind of solidified, because I was just like, well, I can get the A's and I can do the things and I can be the good student and I can, you know, never get detention and all of this stuff. So I was a bit of a late bloomer. I got a bachelor's degree in chemistry. And when I got out of undergrad, I did not want to go into pharmacy, which was the big thing at the time. I didn't want to become a pharmacist. Yeah. And I didn't really want to go into research. I didn't want to be in a lab for the rest of my life. That didn't really feel good. But I wasn't quite at a point in my life where I was prepared to get into medicine. I didn't think I wanted to be a doctor either. I was like, I don't really want that responsibility. So I just kind of floundered around in my early 20s, trying a variety of different things. I ended up doing some administrative work. I ended up becoming a patient care technician at a hospital in an oncology unit. And I really liked engaging with patients that way. So I was like, maybe I could do the medical thing. So I got a certification as an emergency medical technician, and I did that full time for 3 years. And similar thing, I really enjoyed it, but it's a very limited scope of practice. You know, you see people kind of at the worst moments of their lives, and then you drop them off at the hospital. And unless they're still there when you get back for your next call, or you happen to have a good relationship with one of the nurses who works in the unit, you're never going to find out what happened to them.
Yeah.
So that was the point that I started looking at med school. Do I want to go to med school? Do I want to be a physician assistant? And through kind of a comedy of errors of breaking my arm and, you know, having a bunch of time off and deciding I don't really want to spend my life medicating people. I like biomedicine. There's a lot of use in it. I would never, you know, tell anybody, oh, you don't need a primary care physician. Like, no, that's just not feasible or realistic. But it wasn't the right track for me. I wanted to focus more on healthcare and less on sick care. I ended up going to acupuncture school, still carrying all of the habits of perfectionism and not enoughness and needing to, you know, get A's and all of that. So I was quite burnt out when I got there, but I didn't realize it. I was using burnout in the way that we used it pre kind of last 5 years, which is like, oh, I'm so burnt out. Like I need a weekend off, you know, in that kind of way. And when I graduated acupuncture school in 2014, I moved to a city where I didn't know anyone, and I started a business because nobody told me. Most people don't do that. Most people go back to a place where they have some connections, or they stay close to family, or they go, you know, some place where they know people so that they have a little bit of a feeder to start a business from. I didn't want to stay where I was, which is Western New York. It's a beautiful area, but it just didn't feel like home. And so I moved to Providence, Rhode Island, and started a business. And people were like, that's really brave. I was like, no, people do this all the time. They were like, no, they don't. They really don't. So it was very hard. It was very grueling to grow a business. And in the process of doing that, I also was doing that very much out of alignment with my own values. I was trying to build a business the way I was told I should build a business, the way I was told this is how, you know, this is the template for a successful business. And I went out and did the things, and I did not get clients. You know, I was waitressing and bartending full time for the first 2 years of my practice. I was working for other people, other acupuncturists in the area. You know, one woman took a sabbatical, so I took some of her clients, and a lot of those people stopped coming in because they had a 20-year relationship with her and didn't know me. So these are the types of things that I was confronting. And it took me about 5 years to solidly build a business. I shouldn't say that. It took me about two and a half to where I could work fully on my own, just at my business. But it took an additional 3 years to kind of grow that into something that was reasonably sustaining. And in 2019, one of the outside organizations that I contracted with, they hired, you know, community members as independent contractors, and they would refer clients out to us. They kind of wholesale stopped referring outside of the organization. And so it wasn't something that, you know, was like, oh, we don't like you as a provider anymore. We're not going to send you more clients. It was just, we're sort of revamping how we do this. And so we're not sending anybody clients. That was about half of my patient base. And so it literally in July of 2019 gutted my business almost overnight. And I was like, oh my God, I'm going to have to like sell everything I own and take my cats and move into my parents' basement. And at that point, I reached out to a colleague of mine who was an acupuncturist who had also moved to someplace she didn't know anybody. She happened to move to a different country. She moved to Europe where they didn't even speak English. And she started to practice from scratch, not being able to speak Polish. She was in Warsaw, Poland at the time. And she built an incredibly successful practice there. And then she and her husband relocated to Prague, and she built another incredibly successful practice there. And so I reached out to her because I was really panicking. And I was like, what's the secret sauce? Like, would you be willing to help me with this? I'm happy to pay you for your time, but I'm struggling here. And you clearly figured out how to hack this. And she was like, oh yeah, I burnt out twice doing that. I was like, what? So I burnt out. Yeah, exactly. I was record scratch. So she burnt out in the process of doing that, which was how she got into burnout coaching. And so she said, I'm not going to teach you how to do that because that is not good for you. What I can do is tell you you're extremely burnt out right now because I've lived it and I see it in you. And I can help you with that. And that will help your business, regardless of what direction it goes in. So I worked with her. And in the process of doing that, she's like, if this resonates with you, you should get into coaching because this is the kind of community that we need. Yeah. So that's kind of how I got to where I am today.
Yeah, that's an amazing story in that aspect. I'm curious when you were first, when she first named the burnout for you, what were some of the things that you thought or felt at that time?
I felt so seen. And it was like, it's like you have a weird medical condition and nobody knows what it is. And finally you find the one specialist who's like, oh, it's this thing. And you're just like, all of the pieces fall into place. And it's like, those puzzle pieces that didn't look like they fit together, they all fit together now. And it's just like, okay, I still feel like crap, but I have an idea of what's happening to me right now. There's a name for this. And if we have a name for it and an idea of what it is, we have an idea of how to address it.
Yeah. Yes. I think I know that was an experience for me when I had my own experience with burnout. And I think that's probably true for a lot of our listeners. And that if they're experiencing burnout right now, at some point, someone has helped them name it and like given voice to what they were experiencing. What were some? Yeah. What were some of the things that you first started to do to start that recovery process?
I took a hard look at boundaries. Where is my energy going? Where am I putting my time and my effort and my life? That it doesn't need to be, that it can kind of come home. One of the things that I was doing, you're always told as an entrepreneur, oh, you got to get out, you've got to network. And I'm an introvert and I already hate that. Like if you put me on a stage with a microphone and I can sing you anything you want, but if you put me in like a small room and you're like, make small talk, I immediately start sweating. So, I was doing stuff like that. I was trying to stay connected to a lot of my friends because they say like, you have to have a support group, contact your friends, make sure you're checking in with each other. And that's great. But if you're not checking in with yourself and you're putting that energy out into other people, I didn't understand, when everybody says you've got to fill your own cup before you help others, I thought I was, and I wasn't. And so one of the first things that Kate, my coach, had me do was she said, do not speak to anyone for 2 weeks. And what I mean by that is you talk to your clients because you have to, you're at work. That's fine. If you talk to your parents with some kind of regularity and they don't stress you out, which they don't, they were like, that's okay. And she said, if you have a couple of people that you talk to super regularly, just be like, I'm taking a tech break for a couple of weeks. Do not announce this on Facebook. Don't tell anybody. Don't. And unless someone contacts you and says, I'm bleeding or I'm on fire, please call 911. Don't respond. If they ask you how your day is going, don't respond. It's okay. You don't have to. That text will be there when you get back to it in 2 weeks. And I the world slowed down. I was just like, I don't know how to do this, but I did it. I was like, okay, I will do whatever you tell me to, Yoda. So I did. And 2 weeks goes by and she says, how do you feel? I was like, can we do it for 2 months? Can I do this for the rest of my life?
Yeah.
And so a lot of the people that I was talking to on a daily and weekly basis, pre-pandemic, I stopped talking to almost wholesale. And I love them. These are wonderful people. When I connect with them, we're still fine. That's the thing. It's like the world did not fall apart. These people didn't hate me. They're busy too. I was just one less person taking up space in their lives. And so now if we want to talk, we do. If we lose the text chain, fine. It wasn't as critical as I thought it was. And it created so much space for me and so much energy. And it wasn't distracting me in the middle of my day anymore. And so that was one of the places that I started with that kind of boundary, not necessarily of just like, nobody talk to me, but where is my energy going?
That is such a powerful practice, because this world where we are, always connected in some way to someone, to be able to give yourself that full stop and really connect with yourself in that time it just sounds so incredibly special.
And it's really funny because I'm old enough to remember a time pre-internet, pre-cell phone, pre all of that. And so
I feel you there.
Yeah, exactly. I'm just on the cusp of that millennial Gen X where I grew up without all of that stuff for a decent chunk of my life. Like I didn't have a cell phone until I was in college. We got the internet kind of late in my house, but we didn't have the internet until I was in college. And the only reason we got it was because I went to college. So like instant messenger and these ways of staying connected with people, like you talked to your friends on a landline. If you wanted to talk to them one at a time, you weren't texting 9 of them. You know, a lot of the things that take up our space and our time now, I mean, I feel bad for people 10 years younger than me who have always lived like this because that wasn't necessarily the case. And so I kind of went back to a pre-internet era of living for myself. And it completely changed my life.
Yeah. How do you continue to use and honor that practice for yourself today?
That's a really good question. And I think that primarily my focus, and it's very difficult for me to do this. And I would say I've effectively started doing this probably in the last 2 to 3 months. I've been in burnout recovery for a little over 2 years. What do I need in this moment? What do I need in this moment? Not what needs to get done in this moment. What do I need in this moment? And there are times where I will ask myself that 15 times in an hour. There are times that I don't ask myself that for several weeks. And then I have to be like, ding, 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 wake up. But that's been really critical of just really honing in on what do I need right now? You know, I need to get to work in an hour. Okay, what do I need right now? I need to sit on a couch and pet a cat because it brings my parasympathetic nervous system online and it makes my cat happy. I can do that for 5 minutes and my world won't unwind. You know, if it's between that and doing the dishes in the sink, do the dishes need to get done? No, they're not on fire.
Right.
And that is a daily, sometimes hourly, sometimes minute by minute practice of reminding myself, like, nothing's on fire, sit down and breathe.
Yeah. That is such an important question. I think that people need to continually ask themselves is what do I need in this moment? And then the reminder that things can wait is so incredibly important. You talked a little bit about, you know, starting with the setting of boundaries for yourself in that regard. Let's say we have a listener, you know, who is like, okay, I need to start this process. I'm ready. And I'm not quite ready to get the professional help that you all got or seek out one of you as a coach, but I may get there. But, you know, I'm going to start kind of assessing my boundaries. What are some questions that they can ask themselves to kind of figure out what their needs look like?
Where are you feeling resentment? That's a big one. That was something that my coach identified for me.
Yeah.
And she uses that a lot. She actually has something called the resentment journal and I can send you links to some of her. So I use a lot of her resources because I'm not interested in reinventing the wheel.
Sure.
They're already really good. And I'm like, I don't need my name on it. That's not what this is about.
Yes.
But that is a huge place to start because that's someplace that your energy is going that you aren't happy with. So assess, does it need to go there? If it does absolutely need to go there, what are other things in your life that can change around it that make it easier to do that? Whether it's adjusting how the energy goes there or adjusting other places that your energy is going that it doesn't need to be so that you reserve more energy for that.
Yeah.
One of the funniest examples of my life was when I was in the throes of burnout. I have cats and they're like furry little toddlers. I don't say that to like diminish the difficulty of having an actual toddler. Like they're not as difficult as a real toddler. I'm not the person who compares cats to actual children, but they have needs that need to be met kind of immediately. And I would come home from work and they would be like, you know, yelling at me, like, I want dinner and this and that. And I would be like, oh my God, just stop meowing for like a minute. I'm feeling resentment over having to do this task of like, before I get to sit down and relax for 5 minutes, they're screaming at me for food. Like, that's not their fault.
Yeah.
So what's going on in my life that I'm that fried when I get home that I can't just be like, hey guys, let's get you food. And then sit down and be like, all right, you guys are fed. You're quiet. I'm good. Like there's a disconnect between the previous 8 hours of my life at work or 37 years of my life in general that's getting me to that point. Mm-hmm. So that's where I look, not at the cat in front of me because it's not their fault, but I have resentment around it. So resentment around that. So where does that come from?
Yeah. I think, the resentment piece is so, so important. I have clients use what I call a resentment list, and they have to write all the things down, and then they rip the papers up, and then they can either like douse them in water or burn them or bury them, but some kind of way of completely removing that. But a way of processing those resentments is so, so important. So I'm so thankful that you brought that forward.
Yeah. And I think it's something that, I've had clients before where I'm like, where do you feel resentment? And they're like, I don't really have any. I'm like, I don't know. Okay. We're going to do a little more work around that. And you might not keep talking.
And then I'm going to identify I'm not going to let this one
go. Yeah, exactly. So it's like,
really, maybe you don't,
maybe you don't identify it as resentment, but when it comes in, where do you feel stress? Where do you, maybe for you, it starts as anxiety, identifying and sinking into those uncomfortable emotions is where we find the truth of where they're actually coming from.
Absolutely. So this has been such a fantastic conversation, Elizabeth. I am so glad that you have joined us on the show today. You have the opportunity to offer one last piece of advice to our audience. What would that be?
I would say, particularly when it comes to burnout, you do not have to do this alone. Mm-hmm. And that doesn't necessarily mean starting out with a coach. Mm-hmm. It can be a therapist. It can be a primary care physician. A lot of burnout, what I deal with burnout recovery is the physical aspect of it with the functional medicine. And so you may have a vitamin or mineral deficiency. You may have leaky gut or small intestine bacterial overgrowth. All of these things contribute to burnout symptoms like brain fog and fatigue and things like that. So being able to address the body and the brain and utilizing the resources that you have at your disposal. If you're not ready, emotionally or financially to pursue help with somebody who specializes in burnout recovery, you can go to people who are at your disposal at this point in time. So start there and build a community around it. It's not just one person. There's not a one size fits all that's going to fix this. If you really don't know where to start, hit Instagram and follow #endburnoutculture. #burnout recovery. Mm-hmm. There are a lot of people in this environment and in this sphere who are giving away free or inexpensive resources, really good information, life hacks on their Instagram channels. Start there, get curious.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I love that. You don't have to do this alone, and get curious. The resources are out there for you. And I absolutely agree. Like all of us, I think doing this work, put a lot out there for free, as compliments, because truly we want to see the end to this. We want to support people in their burnout recovery. So I'm so thankful for you joining me on the show today. Where can our audience members find out more about you?
You can find out more about me and my programs on my website at www.theeastwestco.com, co like company, CO. And I'm also on Facebook and Instagram and TikTok at The East West Co is my handle. Not super active on TikTok or Facebook, mostly Instagram. So if you want to find me or DM me, that would be the place to go.
Perfect. And dear listeners, we of course have all of that information available to you in the show notes. So you can just click those links to connect with Elizabeth directly. Thank you again for being on the show today.
Oh, thank you, Kate. I really appreciate it.
How amazing was it to hear from Elizabeth? I have to say that I absolutely adore having other experts in the burnout recovery space here on the show, because we all approach it a little bit differently. And there are so many people who need support and help. So I hope that you maybe achieved some of that or had a connection to some of that as you're listening. Remember to hit that subscribe button, leave a review. And dear friends, be sure to share this with someone who needs to hear this. We know that people are hurting out there right now. And that's truly why we do the work that we do, is because we want to stop that hurt. We want to support you in reframing that hurt and coming back from it. Dear listeners, we are going to move into our recovery moment. And remember that I want you to be sure to experience this in a safe space. So if you're driving or if you are walking, be sure to listen. But I would love for you to come back when you can be a little more mindful and actually participate in this meditation. So today we are going to do a guided meditation where you experience your mind as an ocean. So let's start by taking a moment to relax your body. Soften any unnecessary tension in your belly and shoulders. Find a posture that feels both relaxed and alert. Rest your hands in an easy, effortless way. Take a deep breath in through your nose and out. With your eyes open, take a few moments to scan your awareness through the sensations of your body, and wherever possible, soften and release any obvious areas of physical tension. Let your eyes stay open and focus on the middle of the room wherever you are. And then see how you can let your awareness travel across the room from where you're sitting. If you're lying down, you can let your attention go upwards to the ceiling, and then notice how you can let your attention come back to the center of the room. And see if you can bring your attention closer to about book reading distance, as if you're reading a book in your hands. So clearly, you can determine where your attention goes. Now, just let your eyes close and let your attention go inward and gently focus on the sensations of the breath moving in and out of the body. And you can let your attention to go wherever the breath comes most naturally to you. For some people, it's a sensation of the air in the nostrils, with that gentle feeling coming in and out as the air passes in and out at the nostrils. For others, they naturally feel the breath in the chest, with the rising and falling of the chest, with each breath in and out. And for most beginners, people feel the breath most naturally in the belly, feeling the diaphragm underneath the lungs, pulling air into the lungs, expanding your belly as you breathe in. And then when the air is released from the lungs as you breathe out, the belly actually moves inward, sensing the abdominal movements in and out. So see if you can let your awareness ride the wave of the breath. Wherever you feel it most naturally, your nostrils, your chest, your abdominal movement, or for some people, it's even just the whole body breathing, wherever comes naturally for you. And let's just let your attention ride the waves of your breathing as you're sensing your breath in and out. You may also sense that your mind is as vast as the ocean. Where deep in the ocean beneath the surface is calm and clear. And from that deep place in the ocean, you can look upward toward the surface, no matter what is going on in your life, no matter what those conditions are. Deep in the ocean, it's calm and clear. And just sensing your breath allows you to access the deep stillness of your mind, as vast as the ocean, where from this deep, peaceful place, you can look upward at the waves at the surface, the brain waves that are the thoughts and emotions and connections of your mind. Can you notice all those fleeting thoughts and emotions that are just there at the surface, that come and go pretty quickly in and out of your awareness each day, like waves at the top of the ocean? sensing your breath, bringing you back to this peaceful place, feeling the profound depth of your mind when a thought comes, or a feeling, a memory, a sensation, then warmly and calmly taking note of that mental activity and redirect your attention to the breath. Then let your attention return to the breath, to this depth of your mind where you can sense and observe the activities of the mind as just activities and not the totality of who you are. See if you can let yourself enjoy the deep tranquility that comes from sensing the breath, knowing that just focusing your mind on your breathing brings you this deep place of calm and clarity. And now when you're ready, you can let your eyes open. May you bring the same quality of kind awareness to the rest of your day, feeling relaxed in your body and your mind. Dear listeners, thank you for joining me today. You can follow me on Instagram at Dr. Kate Steiner for more recovery moments, and be sure to subscribe to the From Burnout to Recovery show on YouTube. I am so grateful to our guest, Elizabeth Collins, and I'm grateful to each of you for listening. Thank you for joining us today on the From Burnout to Recovery show with Dr. Kate on Transformation Talk Radio. I'm Dr. Kate, and I wish you peace on your journey. Thank you for joining me on the front porch today. Remember, you can download your free Burnout to Recovery Reflection Journal on my website, drkatesteiner.com. And as always, be well, my friends. Thank you for joining me, Dr. Kate, on the From Burnout to Recovery show, where you are starting your journey to burnout recovery. You are invited to join me on the front porch every second and fourth Friday of the month on transformationtalkradio.com to continue growing in resilience and integrating recovery into your daily life. If you would like to learn more or find out how to work with me, visit liftwellnessconsulting.com.